Hello and welcome to WELSTech, the place where we explore the intersections of technology and ministry. Today on the show, we are joined by two of our favorite people, Jason Schmidt and Rachel Feld, to talk a little bit about blended learning and a lot of other great tech in ministry goodness. We're so happy you decided to join us. Enjoy the show. WELSTech is a bi-weekly podcast exploring the intersections of technology and ministry. It is part of the podcast network sponsored by WELS, the Wisconsin Evangelical Lutheran Synod. Our show today is hosted by Martin Spriggs and Sally Draper. Welcome back, everybody, to WELSTech. This is episode 668, and we're recording it on Tuesday, November 23rd. Joining me on the show, where we talk about technology and ministry, is Sally Draper. Hey, Sally.
Good afternoon, Mr. Spriggs. How's it going in your corner of the internet?
It's pretty formal.
Yeah,
things are good. Things are good.
Good.
How about you, Mrs. Draper?
Mrs. Draper is back in Minnesota. I spent a couple of weeks holding a brand new baby, so I'm still on that granny high, and all is well.
I heard you had some trouble with some cats over there.
There were cats. There were multiple cats that swiped and hissed, but we became fast friends, believe it or not.
Fast friends. Okay. I knew it was a struggle there for a while.
Well, I guess maybe fast is an exaggeration. By the end, we were friends. So
what did you do with your cat at home while you were away?
Our son was still home with our cat.
Okay. So you had a cat sitter.
Capable sitter. Yes.
Okay. All right.
It was a happy reunion. Glad that you're tuned into the whole cat thing. That's really impressive, Martin. Maybe you need a cat in your life.
I enjoy a good cat story, but that's as close as I want to get. So
I have some bad cat stories, but like I said, we became friends, so it all worked out for the best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's another cat lover on the show today too.
There is. We have actually a couple of co-hosts joining us today. First off, Professor Rachel Feld from Martin Luther College. Welcome, Rachel.
Well, thank you. Am I the cat lover or is that Jason?
No, I think it would be you.
Jason.
Jason's given us the old signal that wouldn't be him. So we're happy to have you joining us, Rachel. We invite you on to talk education technology every once in a while. And this is one of those pleasurable podcasts that you two are joining us on. Jason's joining us from up there in northern Wisconsin. In the Great White North.
How's it going, Jason? Last time.
We've had this conversation in the past, Sally. We can't call it the Great White North.
Northern.
It's not.
It must
I
be
live
central
in Green Bay.
Wisconsin.
I got in trouble for this last time we had this conversation, but I'll know. I'm excited to be here. I love doing the podcast, and I love being a part of these conversations. We really have a great time. And for as much as Rachel loves her cats, I'm just going to tell you guys, like, we have two cats, and I am the embodiment of that meme where it's got the two guys like arm wrestling, and I'm the dad that didn't want the pet, and the pet's absolutely they ignore everybody else except for me, which I just totally don't understand. So I'm just going to put that one out there right now.
Wonderful. Jason, we love what you bring to the show too. So thanks for joining us once again. Sally, where are we going with the show today?
Well, I'm excited about today's show and actually a whole season of focus on the upcoming education conference, which is happening next summer in Pewaukee, Wisconsin at the Ingleside Hotel, June 20th through 22nd. And we are just on the verge of hearing a whole lot about the schedule and the speakers and the breakout sessions and all kinds of things that will be announced right around the first of the year when registration opens. But lucky for us on WELSTech, we have a little preview of that because one of our speakers for the education conference is able to join us on today's show. And that would be Mr. Jason Schmidt, who is speaking on voice, choice, pace, and place. tools to support blended learning. So we thought we'd just take a little time, Jason, and kind of pick your brain about what people can expect if they're attending your session next summer at Wells Education Conference. So maybe, kick it off with a little bit about why this topic is even relevant. What's the point here?
Sure.
And I bet there's going to be 4 categories in this talk.
Cat.
Our voice, choice. Oh wow! I didn't even. Wow, Martin, that's amazing. I didn't even think about that. So it's just one of those serendipitous things. Like this just ends up working out. That's fantastic.
I'm glad we could help out.
I appreciate you, Martin. Seriously, in so many different ways. You keep me honest.
So what are you going to talk about if you've got that far ahead for us?
Yeah. So the title of the session, as Sally said, is Voice, Choice, Pace, and Place, and we're talking about tools to support blended learning. So one of the things that we noticed in this whole pandemic learning world that we've been experiencing for the last 20 plus months is that it's hard to do blended and online learning. And it's not just hard to do it, but it's hard to do it well. And I think we've seen a lot of examples since March of 2020 of how not to do virtual and online learning. We know that it's exhausting for kids, exhausting for teachers to have kids in one place, doing one thing, and then kids in another place, totally remote, and trying to manage those 2 environments all at the same time. And then there are technical issues that come up. And, that whole model of, we call it, the messaging around that is emergency remote learning, right? So, we're trying to translate what we do in the classroom and make it happen in a virtual way. But really, we've had the answer to this for a really long time. Like, blended learning is not anything new. We've been talking about, we probably have talked about blended learning on the podcast in the last, 76 years that we've been doing this, right, Martin and Sally?
Feels that way sometimes, yes.
Right, yeah. So, this is nothing new, but if we had been adopting that kind of a strategy all along, a lot of the shift to remote, like the classes and the teachers that were doing this well before had a much easier time transitioning into a remote learning environment. So I think we live in a world now where we need to be planning for these kinds of things. We talk about disruptions in education that we have to change the status quo, right? And it's, too many times we come across a teaching strategy, or we do things the way that we've always done them, and we can't go back to business as normal. So this whole idea of blended learning has really gained more traction now as an approach, and also as just something for teachers to be considering as they're designing lessons in their classroom environments. How can we empower students to give them more of a voice and give them choice, and let them select how fast they go through content, and even where they can do these things. And that's really what this session is going to be all about, is what is, like, just a real basic of what is blended learning, and then what are some things that are low to no cost that will help support that instructional strategy in a way that is best for our kids.
And Jason, I know we're all about knowing what the future holds. Actually not, but if we were looking ahead to the future, isn't there a whole camp of people that feel like, this quarantine, we're going to get past it, this isn't going to be an issue anymore? Do you agree with that line of thinking?
I think that we can agree to that line of thinking. As far as like nationwide shutdowns, I don't think we'll get to that point. I think people are just way too fed up with that kind of stuff. And at least here in Wisconsin, I don't know how things are in liberal Minnesota, where you guys have hills and statues of German invaders across the street. But no, I'm just kidding, Rachel. But it's, I don't feel like we'll have anything like nationwide like that. But I do think that this has opened the eyes of a lot of people that school does not need to be as regimented as it always has been. And there are some students that are recognizing that this is actually they prefer this kind of environment, or they prefer to have these kinds of options. And the systems that figure out how to do this well are going to be the ones that are going to continue to thrive, just because, not so much that, I think the market is just going to demand that, if that makes sense. And I don't want to talk about our WELS schools as market, but I mean, really that's you have to figure out a way to do what you do well. And this is one of those ways, one of these strategies that we can use to continue to be relevant, and then also meet the needs of a changing population, because of just the needs are changing.
Jason, what would be some of the objections maybe that you'd anticipate to a blended learning approach?
I think there's a perception out there that this is hard, and you need to be incredibly tech savvy, and you've really got to know what you're doing, to be able to make something like this work. And it does not need to be hard. And it's not, if you can put your focus where it needs to be on students and student learning, and giving them agency, like that's you're 2/3 of the way there, and then the tools just kind of fill in where you need to. I think too, some of the other concerns that we'll find out for people will be, things like internet access and the reliability of their internet access, both at home and at school. If they have access to devices, and not just the number of devices, but the quality of devices, depending on the kinds of activities that they're going to have. And then, just in general, how do you manage a classroom when you have kids in a blended learning environment? How do you hold them accountable? How do you keep making sure that they're doing the things that they're supposed to be doing? How do you know that you're meeting their social needs, right? Because that's another thing that it just keeps on coming up over and over, is, the not just learning loss, but the social loss that students have experienced. And they've been away from their peers, and they're acting out in schools and all of these kinds of things. So how do we provide those kinds of opportunities? And all of those are definitely things that can be overcome. It's just a matter of being creative in our approaches, right?
And that's why I need to be in your session, right? Because you're going to teach me all those ways to overcome. I can imagine.
Well, I will provide you with some ideas of things that may have worked for others, and some guiding questions. Because really, and that's the hard thing about doing a session like this, is it's so just like when you're in the classroom, right? You can't give everybody the same thing, because not everybody needs the same thing. And that's one of the big pieces of this, is that very fact. Like that's central to blended learning, is that not every kid needs every same thing. So we want to provide them with options to be able to accomplish that. So really, it comes down to the application of the tools, and what do you learn and what do you get out of this session, and then how can you bring that back to your school and have a more of a I don't want to say a transformative experience, but that's all I can think of. So I'm sure Rachel's got a better idea of a word that I can use with that. But you get what I mean, right? You don't change, because this is a big shift. So you don't do this in a day. You don't do this in a month. You don't even do this in a year. Like this is persistent, constant, revisit, rework, rethink. All of those kinds of things are going into it. And then you build your competency, you build your ability to be able to do it, and then see where things go from there.
Rachel, your students there at MLC lived through this quarantine time, and they were on the receiving end as students of this. And obviously you're training them to be teachers. Did it shift some of your training to this kind of blended focus? Are they getting that through their work there?
It's been we are trying our best, yes, but as our teachers out in the field are, saw struggles with this, we struggled with this on our campus as well, both in our ability to offer our content, but then absolutely in how do we prepare our future teachers for these blended classrooms. And it's a constant work in progress, and it's not easy, but we are so happy to be connected with so many great cooperating teachers, both in our public and private schools, schools throughout. Well, at this point, we're throughout the United States, because we send student teachers down to Florida, out to Arizona, and definitely in Wisconsin and Minnesota. That's where so many of our students get to see all those theories and ideas that they've learned about in class, and they can see how that happens in an actual classroom. So that's a huge part of their experience. But we are working on how can we take those pieces, and especially those technology pieces, and get experience for our students sooner. But again, that's you have to start with the building blocks of technology. We're not of teaching, and we can't make them learn those building blocks any faster than we have before. So we are doing our best to put out solid teachers who know how to teach, but then also have that growth mindset that Jason is talking about, that they can't learn all those things on our campus. It's not possible. And so that they're keep doing professional development and learning things outside of their classroom, so that they can keep working on that.
Excellent.
Jason, what are some of those technologies that we're talking about here? So if somebody is thinking, well, this sounds, this is something I'm interested in, kind of developing, growing. What does that mean? What does that look like as far as just the raw technologies that are concerned?
Sure. Yeah. When I'm framing a presentation like this or talking about this topic, I always try to align things to purpose. So, there are certain things, like certain needs that you need to have in a blended classroom, that we look for those, and then we find the technology and the tools that kind of fit around that. So you need a place to keep your content that kids are going to be accessing, whether it could be a Google Drive, it could be a site, it could be some sort of a repository where all of that stuff is. And then once you have your content, you also need to have a hub or a place that they can go so that they can access that content. So some of the examples that we talk about, and people are really familiar with Google Classroom. Seesaw is another common platform for sharing that kind of content and using that as a hub. And there, it just depends on what's your environment going to look like. Sometimes Google Classroom works really well. I would argue that even though I'm a Google trainer, don't tell Google this, but there are a lot of times that Google Classroom does not work and is very difficult to navigate. So it just depends on what that classroom environment looks like, right? Obviously, you got to have things for them to do, because it's not, technology should not be just a simple consumption thing. So, it's not, you can't give your kids a playlist of YouTube videos on Khan Academy and say you're teaching them math. They need to do something with that. So some way to give them access to that input, but then a place to place their output as well. And then, just because you're doing blended learning does not mean that you don't still have physical materials or physical supports or any of those things that need to be in place. You could have a blended, I'll give you the example of a kindergarten classroom could be a blended classroom. And then, the kids have stations where they're doing different things. They have manipulatives and activities that they're using, and then they use the technology to document the work that they did and provide a reflection so that you can kind of hear what they're thinking, rather than just get a copy of a worksheet. So, there's nothing wrong, and that fits into it too, is just the ability to provide documentation, because we've got that accountability piece of it, right? We want to make sure the kids are doing something. We also want to make sure that they're doing something worthwhile and something that demonstrates that they understand the content that we have in front of them. So that could be, maybe it is a worksheet, but then there's got to be another component because what blended really allows you to do is it opens up the doors for some of those multiple modalities. So we're learning about kids, especially our younger learners, is they don't all express themselves in the same way. And for some of our, especially our youngest students, those fine motor skills aren't quite there yet. So it's really hard for them to write 2 sentences or a sentence or something like that. But give them the opportunity to record themselves and they'll talk for 45 seconds or 2 minutes. And you get a whole lot more out of them to be able to, if we're doing something like that. So just kind of lowering the bar for allowing kids to show what they think, and to have that piece of it is really part of the power of blended learning, and how we can fit that in. And a lot of these tools will help with that. So I mentioned a couple of them, but I've got plenty of time to plan this session, Martin. So I'm like already 6 months ahead of where I would normally be. So this is super helpful for me to be on this podcast.
Very good. You can just play the podcast for them when they walk in the door, huh?
I think that's what I'm going to do. Actually, I'll let it play for the first 45 minutes, and I'll say, okay, anybody have any questions?
Not true, folks. You need to come to the conference. You need to see Jason in person and benefit from his special brand of sunshine regarding blended learning.
I am way more entertaining in person than I am on a podcast.
And that's saying something.
Aw, thanks, Rachel.
So,
welcome.
I'm just going to circle back to a little bit more detail about the conference. You can learn about it at WELSedconference.com. When you're there, you'll find a place to sign up for email updates about the conference. And like I said, lots of things are on the verge of breaking. So we're going to have lots of breaking news coming up very soon, because conference registration is scheduled to open at the beginning of the year. So lots of details about all the different speakers that will be there and topics covered. We did have an announcement recently about the cost of the conference. So if you missed out on that, we're doing some pre-conference stuff on June 19th. That's a Sunday afternoon. And those sessions are going to be $50. You can get a one-day pass for $175 to attend either the Monday or Tuesday full day lineup of sessions. You can come to the whole conference for $375, but there will be early bird discounts applied if you register by May 1st. You can get it for $325. And on top of that, as if that wasn't good enough, schools who are in the annual contribution program with Lutheran schools receive an additional $50 discount code for each attendee. So that could cut the price down to $275 for the full conference. And that's quite a bargain for all that we're planning there. Room rates at the Ingleside Hotel in Pewaukee are $129 a night. And that does not include water park passes. I think the last one we had at a water park, you got the water park passes whether you plan to use them or not, and it was added onto your room rate basically. But now you can buy those separately, $30 per room night for up to 4 guests at the water park there at the Ingleside. So something for everyone, and just do your planning and budgeting so you can get registered before May 1st if possible. And then just one more mention from the website, there's a page about becoming a sponsor. We're looking for sponsors for the conference, and all the details are posted there on the website. We'll have a link to that in the show notes. You can look at the different sponsorship levels that are available and what we're planning for vendor exhibits and things like that. All the details there on the website, WELSedconference.com.
Just exciting to be talking about an in-person conference again, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It's going to be a happy day.
Yeah. Thanks, Jason, for sharing what's coming up in your talk. And I'm sure as it develops, that'll be nice to see it come together. I'm sure it'll be a treat for anybody that's attending. So awesome. Let's move along. We have the next segment in our show, which is News in Tech. And one thing that was in the news the last couple months, we haven't called really attention to it on the show, is that there is a brand new Windows version out. This is relevant, I think, for a lot of people because some of you are responsible for rolling these kinds of things out. Windows 10 has been around for quite some time. Windows 11 is quite a refresh. They've added a lot of new features, and by and large, I think the feedback has been extremely positive for what Windows 11 brings to the table, and very stable. I think the visuals are one. They've kind of changed the user interface a bit. It looks actually a little bit more Mac-like. The application icons are in the middle at the bottom, just like a Mac is. Very, I think, usable design. I think a lot of the improvements come in that space. They've built in some communication tools for Teams, which is kind of the Skype replacement. And they've just done kind of a nice job at window management and some of the things that Windows has, I think, sometimes struggled with in the past. But performance has been good. I've been using it for the last month or so, and it seems like a good rollout. So that has been in the news lately. And so I think you have to have a certain level of machine available for it to automatically get installed. I think they're working on ways for you to work around that if you really want Windows 11, but it does require some security features be enabled and a certain chip, TCM chip, be in your computer for it to be upgradable. But they've done a nice job with this. So take a look if you're interested in Windows 11, the next latest and greatest in the Windows line.
Very good. I think I will
Go ahead, Sally. Sorry.
Jump in with some WELS now. And this week we wanted to feature some information about Amazing Grace Virtual Academy. If you are a longtime listener, you've probably heard us talk about what used to be referred to as Area Lutheran High Schools Online, which was an online education location. I think it kind of grew out of just a few supplemental type courses that weren't always available in the high school settings, like maybe your high school didn't have Latin classes. Well, you could turn to Area Lutheran High Schools Online and tap into an instructor and take online Latin through this WELS organization. But things have changed, and Amazing Grace Virtual Academy is the new name for the Association of Lutheran High Schools Online. And they are actually hiring currently. And I just wanted to make mention of the fact that they're actually looking for online instructors, as well as an assistant, I believe they called it administrative position, a part-time administrative position. So in terms of online instructors for the 2022-23 coursework, they're looking for people qualified to teach Introduction to Algebra, Algebra 1, Biology, Music Fundamentals and Appreciation, or Physical Education and Health in an online environment. These positions will be considered part-time adjunct instructors. They need to be WELS or ELS members in good standing and have a degree in their subject area, be willing to be trained or have training already in online teaching and course design. And then the part-time administrative position that they're looking for is just to reduce the workload of the current superintendent. That would be James Grunwald, friend of WELSTech, and they're looking for someone willing to work 10 to 20 hours per week, flexible work hours, interest in online education and WELS and ELS. The administrative responsibilities would be determined in consultation with the current superintendent. So in both cases, we have Dr. Jim Grunwald's contact information that we can share with you. So we will probably just include that information in our show notes, but it's basically to reach out to him. You could probably head over to amazinggraceva.org, the website for Amazing Grace Virtual Academy, and find his contact information there as well. But if you have an interest in those types of positions, just reach out to Jim and get more details.
It is a fun experience. I teach a class there, have for 4 or 5 years now on web page design, and just interacting with the high school kids. They want to be there, and that's kind of half the battle. So they're interested in what you're teaching, and I think the first couple years you kind of figure it out, and then after that you've got the course kind of nailed, and you just kind of enjoy the experience and the interaction, and you make your tweaks along the way, of course. But it is a totally online asynchronous platform, and the platform is very solid. They use Moodle, and I think it's well organized, well promoted, and well used from what I can tell from the enrollment. So it's a very popular thing, and Jim does a great job at managing that whole process.
Excellent.
All right, let's move along to our picks of the week, and ladies first and guests first, and that'd be Rachel. Rachel, what are you bringing to the table today?
That would be me. Well, today I am bringing one of my favorite new, very tiny pieces of tech, which is the Apple AirTag. And I actually am not a person that loses things very often, but when I was first handed my MLC keys, I was very cognizant of the fact that these keys opened a lot of things, and I did not want to lose them, like really didn't. And I have never lost keys, but it was a bit of stress in my life. So I started out with a tile tracker, and it worked all right. But a couple months ago, when I was in Wisconsin, I did actually lose my keys for the first time ever. It was just my car keys. I had MLC keys were left at home. But because of how tile works, it was not super accurate in being able to figure out where my keys were, which did happen to be just under the seat in my friend's car, where I had asked them to look like 4 times. And yeah, they did turn up. It was fine. It's all good. Anyways, that had me looking into something that might be a little more useful, and which brought me to the AirTag, which is basically just a tiny little circle. It's about the size of a quarter, and it is an Apple product, obviously, so it works best with the Apple ecosystem, and works through the Find My app on the iPhone, and is really, really quite accurate. Perhaps scarily so. And you've maybe seen Apple AirTags in the news as something that can unfortunately be used to stalk people, which is not cool. I saw an article recently about someone who had found one taped underneath their car because someone was trying to follow them. And what is nice about this is your iPhone will tell you if there's one that's following you that isn't yours. And so the other week at Coral Fest, which was on our MLC campus, I did actually get a notification saying, hey, there's this AirTag that's been around you a lot and isn't yours. Well, I was also with 600 some students from all over the place. So I'm very sure there was one around me that was not mine. Sure, it belonged to a student, but I like that security feature, that Apple's kind of looking over my shoulder as far as the tracking is concerned. It is very accurate to find something if you lose it. They're very small. I bought the 4-pack, which is $99, I do believe, and put one on my school keys, one on my car keys, one on my bag, and one on my wallet. So all those important things, I can see exactly where they are all the time, and just kind of is a nice little peace of mind for those important things in my life.
It is uncanny how accurate they work. They have a feature. We bought a pack of 4 as well when they first came out, and they have a feature where now your phone will alert you if you've left one behind. So we put one in our camper. We bought a camper earlier this year, or last year, and she we call her Sola Gratia, but we call her a she. She is in a storage facility, and whenever we tuck her in, my phone Actually, a CarPlay on the dash of my car says "Sola Gratia" is left behind. It's kind of a sad thing, actually. But it is kind of cool, especially if you're leaving something behind that you obviously you feel you should have with you. And that works actually for other Apple products too, like an iPad or if you've left that behind, etc. So, but they're very accurate and they work often because iPhones and iPads are so prevalent. That's why this network thing, that's why it works so well, because they can zero in on exactly where it was last seen, and they use other people's technology to zero in on that. So very cool technology. And I think much better than Tile for that reason, because there's so many more of them out there.
Yeah, and I think in my experience with the Tile, that was the issue, was in where the Tile was, there just weren't any people running the Tile app around it. So there wasn't any place for the Tile to sit, ping it and say, hey, here I am. Well, if you think of how many people have iPhones, that's a much bigger network.
Yeah. Very good. Nice pick. I like it. Jason, what do you got?
Well, I have, unlike fancy schmancy Apple devices, this is something that is time limited and a gift from the federal government. So, my pick this
nothing
week
to sneeze at there.
Yeah, right. Exactly. My pick is from the state of Wisconsin. Has the Wisconsin Digital Learning Collaborative. And this is an organization that receives funding from the Department of Public Instruction to be able to provide resources for quality online learning and instruction and all of those kinds of things. As part of that ESSER money that has come out, those stimulus funds, through the month of June, Wisconsin teachers can go to the link that we put into the show notes. I'm sure Sally will update that later, and take a free course of any of the ones that are on there. So, we had particularly my session at the WELSTech conference is going to be all about blended learning. There are some blended learning courses in there. There's becoming an effective online teacher. But then there are also some additional courses in there that aren't just for online. So, building relationships of trust with students, communicating the why of student-centered learning. Like there's a ton of stuff in here, like something like 18 or 20 different courses that are completely free and available to any Wisconsin teacher. You just go in, click on the link, click learn more, sign up for the class, and then you can go through all of that stuff at your own pace. So really great opportunity for some free professional development that is very high quality and targeted at specific needs that we're seeing that have come out of our pandemic. So make sure you take care of that before the end of June, because that is when funding expires and access expires, and they may transition to paid for content at that point. So that's my pick.
Good stuff. Thanks for sharing that with us, Jason. I think I'm next. And I will jump in with an Apple-centric pick as well. This one is actually a feature on the iPhone that, I came across this headline that said, the best iPhone feature you're not using, and it will save you dozens of unnecessary swipes. And I'm all about using the best and avoiding unnecessary swipes. So it was right up my alley. It's from the Macworld blog, and it basically is showing you how you can take advantage of an accessibility setting for tapping on the back of your phone. So the iPhone will actually respond to taps, and you can set up a particular response for 2 taps on the back of the phone and a separate one for 3 taps on the back of the phone, and have it doing things at your whim with just the tapping motion. The example in the article was to use the 2 taps to actually open the phone or unlock the phone. The phone does facial recognition, but if you ever just look at the main screen of your phone, a little lock symbol unlocks when it recognizes your face, but it still doesn't open unless you swipe upwards. And so this 2 tap will allow you to get rid of that swipe motion. Once it's unlocked, if you double tap, you can have go to the home screen of your phone. You just set it up to go to the home screen on a double tap. And so that's where they are talking about saving you dozens of unnecessary swipes. So my problem with that is that I'm really trained to swipe. And so even though the 2 taps is there and it works for me just fine, I find myself still swiping. So that one is good, but I might even repurpose the 2 taps to do something different. I don't know. The one that I got really excited about actually was a 3 tap, which I set to doing a screenshot. So oftentimes when I have my phone open, I want to capture what's on the screen, and that's a little bit awkward. Since they got rid of the circle button on the front, you have to kind of push in the 2 side buttons at the same time just right. And sometimes when I do that, I actually turn my phone off accidentally. I don't get the button squashes done at the right time together synchronously or whatever. But now I don't have to worry about that awkward thing. I can just tap 3 times on the back and it does a screenshot. And I think that's well worth the free price of admission for this pick. And if you want to set it up, you can go to accessibility and then touch. And then there's a setting for back tap. It's near the bottom of the list of touch settings. And I believe it's available on iOS 14 and up devices. So check it out and let me know if the tapping helps you.
Excellent. I've tried that in the past, and it's kind of a horse apiece whether you want the thumb action or the index finger or whatever other you're going to use on the back of the phone. But it does work really well. I mean, this is very reliable. So excellent pick. All right, my pick of the week is a website / service called Placeit. Placeit.net, and basically it is a media creation site. If you've watched our new intro when we went back to video, there is kind of a splash screen and some intro music, and you see the WELSTech logo. That's where I actually went to create that, and there are all kinds of applications for this. I'm going to play their intro video here, but one of their biggest selling features is their video maker platform, where you can get almost everything done for you except the content, your name, your messaging. You can even add your own images, but there's a lot of, I think, different applications for this. Could be Facebook headers or videos, Instagram stories, any video opens or ads for church on your church screens, sermon, Bible class series, event promos. So these could go, on those screens, could be on your website, could be at the beginning or end of your streaming of your services, or at different key spots within them. So lots of different applications for ministry purposes, and extremely well done. So I'm going to go ahead and play their intro. It is visual, but the narrator kind of walks you through some of the key features of the video maker, which is one of their key tools. So let me go ahead and do that. And here we go.
Hey, you. Yes, you. Let me show you how to promote your latest product, create a viral countdown sensation, or just share a funny moment with your followers, all without skipping a beat. Placeit's video makers are super easy to use and let anyone create high-quality videos in seconds. Simply pick a video maker from hundreds of stunning video templates. Now, let's start editing. Click here to type your text and choose a font along with the colors for your titles. Pick the colors for your template to match your style and select a cool background for it. Use the search bar to find whatever you're looking for in Placeit's library, and when you're ready, click it and find the crop tool at the corner of the image to adjust it to your liking. You can even upload your own custom image or video by clicking this button. Perfect to showcase your own products. Go on and select a tune from our free audio library. Search any style and add some rhythm to your videos, like this one. Remember that you can easily turn your templates into slideshows. Find the option at the bottom of the page. Click the Add Slide button to select the next scene. Click on it to edit. At any time, you can change the playback speed. Find this section under the text options. You have 3 different speed options. Click on the one that suits your project better, and then click the preview video to see all your changes reflected. And now, click the blue download button to get your finished video. One last tip. Try our free video to GIF tool to turn your video into a, you're right, a GIF. Simply select your video, do some adjustments, and click the download button to get it. Find a link to it in the description box down below. Spend less time editing and more time creating intros for your videos, engaging Instagram stories, beautiful slideshows, tutorials, and a really long etc. in just minutes. Give it a try. The worst that can happen is that you fall in love with it.
So I found
he said-
Go ahead.
I think he said a really long etc. It can do it all.
That's right. It really only took me probably an hour to put together our intro video. It looks very professional, and almost all their video clips are about 10 seconds, but you can stretch them out or make them shorter, but they're just kind of these intro things. It can be looped. You can put them together. Embed them in PowerPoints, all kinds of different options. I bring it up now because they are having a sale for the next 7 days, kind of this Cyber Monday sale, they call it. 50% off annual subscriptions. The normal subscription is $90 a year. So you can get this for $45 a year, unlimited use. So if you have different events, sermon series, Bible classes, things you want to promote, things you want to put on the website, intros of any kind. I think this is a great tool. Now, it's not specifically for ministry, but I think a lot of the graphics are very generic and could be used in lots of different approaches. So could be Thanksgiving themed or Christmas themed, or all kinds of different variations. They not only have videos, but they also have logos that you could use, or just general page designs for social media, for instance, Facebook covers, Facebook posts, Pinterest, Patreon, Instagram, Twitter. All of those are in here as well. So worth a look. You can try it for free. You can actually build one for free. You'll get watermarked unless you pay for it, but even the one-offs that you create are only like $10-12, something like that. So that's Placeit.net. So I'd encourage you to take a look if that is something that you do or have responsibilities for. I think there's some good stuff there.
Yeah, that's really
enjoyed it.
interesting. That reminds me a lot of, like, as you're showing the website and stuff, it reminds me a lot of Canva.
Yeah, I was
That's
thinking
just
the
what I
same
was gonna
thing,
With that
too.
edit, with that
Mhm.
video editing addition is kind of
Mhm.
interesting. I was thinking about looking into it and starting to work on it with it, but then he called it a GIF, so they lost me. Sorry, I can't
We're not-
work with somebody who mispronounces.
Do we
that.
really
I'm
need to
sorry.
go there? Yes.
I'm done. I'm out.
All right.
I'm
It's
with you,
got all the
Jason.
etc. though. All that etc.
All the
All the
etc.
etc.
Right. So that's my pick of the week. Enjoy. All right, let's move on to ministry resources. I still have the floor here, and one of the resources I want to share is from our friends at Northwestern Publishing House, and they have a study Bible coming out, which I am excited about, and it is available for pre-order. It's the EHV Study Bible, the Evangelical Heritage Version, which is that translation that was released a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, by our members of our own Wisconsin Synod. And now they are publishing the accompanying study Bible. Many of you are probably familiar with the Concordia Study Bible or those kinds of things, where it's kind of a small commentary built into the Bible. So many of the verses will have references at the bottom, giving a little bit further explanation or further study. This is going to be available December 15th. So available if you want to maybe put this in somebody's stocking. $59.99 is the base cost, $10 extra if you want to imprint up to 2 lines of engravings on them to note a special occasion or the year or whatever. So if you want to, we'll put a link in the show notes to the page for this, but you can just go to MPH's site, and I think they're featuring it on their homepage as well. So just wanted to call your attention that this is out there, available, and no, it wouldn't be a bad Christmas present.
And as if that wasn't good enough, they have a second book that's being released on December 15th, Martin. I'm not sure if you're familiar with The Story of God's Love, which is subtitled A Summary of the Holy Bible. And again, it's based on the Evangelical Heritage version of the Bible. And it's basically the Bible in chronological order in 250 Bible readings. You could use them as a daily devotion, for instance. So it comes from all the books of the Bible and includes 175 of the most significant Bible stories. So there's brief summaries at the beginning of each reading section, and there's maps in there, timelines, all kinds of things to help you study God's word in these nice little small devotional type settings. Each little short reading takes you through the entire Bible. And so again, The Story of God's Love is going to be available December 15th as well. And the price on it is $21.99. So you can also pre-order that if that's of interest to you from our friends at Northwestern Publishing House.
Excellent. I'm going to look into that. I am very familiar with The Story of God's Love, just not this particular publication. So.
There you go. And as if that wasn't enough great ministry resources, I have one more to share, and this one wouldn't see the light of day if it was up to Martin, because he'd never share this of his own, but he actually did chapel last week at the CMM. So those that aren't familiar, each week we have a chapel service on Wednesday mornings at the Center for Mission and Ministry, and the different administrators in the building, as well as guest pastors, people that are there for different meetings and all kinds of things, kind of rotate through giving the devotion each Wednesday morning. And last Wednesday, Martin gave the devotion, and it had, believe it or not, a bit of a techie twist to it. And I told him that needs to go on WELSTech. It was a really great devotion. And he tied in Apple Care, of all things, into his devotion. So
yeah, just to tease it, there are quite some similarities between Apple Care Plus and our own Apple Care, which was introduced there in the Garden of Eden. So take a listen if you like. So we'll put a link in the show notes.
And maybe it's something that would be a good devotion for your faculty or staff as well. So check it out.
Had some fun with it. All right, let's move on to community feedback.
And just a couple of communities that I follow that I wanted to give a special shout out to this week. Always finding great content from them and sharing with our WELSTech listeners. One of them is a blog site called Church Tech Today at churchtechtoday.com. And we have benefited and learned from this blog site and been interested in articles and things posted here for many, many years. We've talked about it on WELSTech many times, including having the former curator, the founder of the website, Lauren Hunter, on WELSTech back in 2014. She joined us. So Church Tech Today is probably not something new for you guys, but I just wanted to remind you of the site and let you know that they continue to crank out really great helpful resources around church and technology. Lauren has actually moved on. She's not part of the site. I think she sold it at some point recently. So there's new management, but still lots of great content there and things for you to make use of in your church and technology setting. So if you haven't looked at it recently, check out churchtechtoday.com. And then another great resource that I've found really helpful, not specific to technology, but there's lots of technology discussion there, is a Facebook group called Church Communication. And I believe this is kind of a vendor-sponsored group, but there's over 30,000 people here, and I'm constantly finding really helpful discussions around different church communication aspects. Again, not always tech oriented, but much of it is. Recently, there were discussions like, what kind of branded apparel do you make use of in your church? What do you do in your bulletin? Can I see some example bulletins for those that are still printing bulletins? Someone said, one of my tech guys suggested we might need to be on Vimeo as well as YouTube, and it seems like overkill. What do you guys think? And always, again, a pretty thorough discussion of different questions and topics that are out there. So just something to keep your fresh ideas going around church communications. Maybe if you're on Facebook, this would be a good group to tune into. So we'll have links to both in the show notes, WELSTech.wels.net.
And Sally, how else can people contribute to the show?
Oh, so many ways. I wonder if I'm coordinated enough to share my screen. So we have a blog. We've been curating that blog for, what did you say, Jason? 76 years or something thereabouts. At WELSTech.wels.net. We actually started in 2008, and we've posted ever since. And so you can find all of that historic, great content there. You can search and find things. You can get in touch with us through our many social media channels that are featured in the upper right area of the site. Martin's particularly fond of Pinterest. So if you pin things, he's going to be all over that. But we're on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. We have an email address. It's WELSTech@wels.net. And from the site, you can also send us a voicemail, and we'd love to include your voice in our conversation. So check it out.
I call it P-interest. Isn't that the way it's supposed to be pronounced?
P-interest.
P-interest. Yep, I'm there. All right. Really appreciate Jason and Rachel joining us. Thanks so much, you guys, for being there. Rachel, you got anything special coming up for the rest of the year? What are you working on besides your PhD?
Actually, an EdD, working on a dissertation, and Moodle 4.0 is going to be coming out pretty soon. That's our learning management system. So looking at some ways to make any changes in upgrading to that less painful for those involved. So
awesome. Thanks for all you do up there. Appreciate that. Jason, how about you? What do you got coming up other than, busily prepping for a conference next year?
I don't know what busily prepping. What? I mean, it's already done.
That's right.
You guys made me do that. Yeah. So I got some traveling coming up the next couple of weeks. I got a conference in Houston, another one in
cool.
In the
so
Dells.
You're doing the face-to-face thing. Awesome.
We've been doing the face-to-face thing. So there's lots of really good things going on though. Very, very excited for where we're headed as a state, and with just the work that's going on, and I'm excited for the future.
Excellent. Well, we're going to keep trucking down the road with new WELSTech episodes. Join us in a couple of weeks as we begin to kind of focus on the Christmas season and some opportunities to use some things around that very special event. I want to thank everybody for joining us. We know that you have choices. You do not have to tune in when you do, but we appreciate that you do. And bring a friend next time, because the more the merrier.